2 seconds here. Let me just fix something. Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead, bud.
Welcome back, everyone, to episode 8 of No Story Left Behind. Finally, it's been a couple months, but we're finally back. I am joined this week by my co-host Steve and producer Casey, and guest host Brian is going to be popping in the chat here soon if you guys are streaming in live. This we are joined with retired Marine author, along with Bing West, of Into the Fire, podcast host and business owner, also a Medal of Honor recipient, Dakota Meyer. Thank you, Dakota, for taking the time out of your day to join us on the show. Just want to introduce yourself to everybody listening real quick.
No, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate it.
I've read your book. I've read your book twice, and I've listened to the audio version as well. And there's just a lot to unpack there. So I just want to start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up?
Yes, I grew up in a small town, Columbia, Kentucky, and it's South Central Kentucky, and yeah.
What's the day in the life like in a small town of Kentucky?
I mean, it's just everybody knows everybody. You got to watch, it's kind of like it's good. It's got its good things and it's got its bad things, right? I mean, it's got it's kind of like being on base, right? Like everybody knows your shit. Everybody watches what you do. You know, everybody's got something to say. Everybody's got an opinion of you. Then on the back end of it, it's got the good parts of it of where if you need help, you've got a neighbor who's going to be there to help you too. You know what I mean?
What'd you do down there for fun? And what were you doing in school? Did you play sports or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up playing sports, so I played sports. I whatever I could do to stay busy. Obviously, I mean, I did everything from football to basketball to track. I mean, year round, try and stay busy. And then, yeah, we had a farm, a family farm, so worked on that all through the summer. And then, just the uh, normal farm life.
And one of the stories you talk about in your book is learning how to ride that four-wheeler, which I got a chuckle about, and I really think it speaks to your character as, I'd say, work ethic and stubbornness, if you will.
Yeah, like I think one of the things, I think everybody has a superpower, right? So like I think everybody inside them has a superpower, and once I think you have natural superpowers, and I think you have superpowers that are just um, they become your superpowers based off of what's life thrown at you and how you dealt with it, right? So I mean, I think one that I had in me just from the beginning was just I was too dumb to quit. You know what I mean? Like I was just I just quitting wasn't an option. I was hard headed, stubborn, whatever you want to call it. I like to think of it as too dumb to quit, and it's something that's always stuck with me for some reason.
But what were you like as a student? Were you pain in the neck in school? And I mean, you kind of talked about being a good kid, but being a bit of a thorn in the side of your dad.
Yeah, I mean, I think as far as being a student, I think that you know I wasn't a real good student. I think that part of that was just the fact that I was bored in school. Like I wasn't challenged. I always seemed to thrive towards coaches and things like that. People who challenged me and people who would demand the most of me. So I think that that's something that was something that was always there for me. I'm more of a structure kind of guy, so like I want structure, I want accountability. Like that's the stuff that drives me.
Did that kind of steer you towards the direction of joining the military? Do you think?
No, I mean I don't think so at all. I think that I mean really it just came down to right place at the right time. Like as much as I thought that I had life figured out, at 17 years old, I'd gone through, got all my paperwork filled out for the clearinghouse and to try to go play sports, at the next level. And, definitely I'm not gonna say that I was good enough to go. I wasn't gonna go. I'm not gonna be like one of the guys like, yeah, I could have went D1, blah blah. But I could have definitely went D2 and started as an outside linebacker. I looked at going to a couple. I was young. I was 17 when I graduated, so I was obviously the youngest in my group. And sometimes playing against 19-year-olds who's, I mean, you look at the 2 years difference of, especially at that age, the speed and the level that you could play at. So honestly, I mean, I had planned my whole life around. I'm not gonna say my whole life, but I had planned the next chapter of my life after high school um, as being going to probably a JUCO or a D2 school, Western Kentucky, something like that, Eastern Kentucky, playing football for a couple of years, redshirting, and then turning around and going and trying to play at the next level at a D1 school like University of Kentucky or something like that. That was kind of what I wanted to do, and just one day I walked in, there was a Marine recruiter, and basically, I started talking to him, asking him a lot of smart questions. I didn't know much about the Marine Corps. My grandfather was a Marine, and he just never really said much about it. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know what the Marine Corps was the day that I went to this recruiter, and he's like, well, there's no way you'd ever make it as a Marine, and I'm like, oh, okay, done.
It's funny. It's funny how they do that. That's it every time.
I think I got set up.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, I mean, look, all I can do is promise you a tryout. I can't promise you you won't make it, but I can just let you go to the tryouts. So that day I joined. I signed up that day and I left. Like, I couldn't leave earlier because I had already signed up to play on an all-star team for Kentucky down in Hawaii, and so for football, so I had to still fulfill that obligation. So I went down there and played and turned around and left like 6 days later for boot camp.
How'd your family react when you told them you're joining the Marine Corps?
I mean, obviously my grandfather was really proud. I mean, my grandpa was like, he was over the top. My dad was, same thing. My dad was proud. My grandmother was proud. I mean, my mom definitely was not, but I lived with my father. I'll never forget, my mom actually showed up to the day I was swearing in. And you know how like you go through MEPS that day, you swear in at the end, and then you jump on the bus right after that, right? And
yep.
And she was there at the swearing in, and by the time I was done with the oath, she'd already walked out and left.
So, I mean, you said you're playing football, and 6 days later you're leaving for boot camp.
Yeah.
Were you nervous? What was going through your mind on that?
I don't know that I was nervous. I mean, I think the nerves kick in for everyone as soon as you cross the bridge, right? Like as soon as they tell you, so if you go to Paris Island, they, as soon as you get to the front, like you never see the front gate. Like before you get there, the bus driver will tell you, hey, at this point, you got to put your head down. You can't look out the windows, blah, 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 blah. So you put your head down. And then the next thing you know, the drill instructor that walks up, I mean, it's like etched inside of your mind. Your head's down, it's dark, it's late, you're tired because you've been, riding some damn bus all the way down there. And then all of a sudden you hear just like these hard steps of those boots hitting those steps coming up onto the white bus. And then like it's fucking on.
It's on. Like they have that shit down to a science. Like I just remember like it was dead silent on the bus. Everyone was just fucking tense. And then this dude just steps on the bus, like you said, like hard-ass boots, and he stops and stares at us for like 5 seconds. He's like, get the fuck off my bus. And it was like a mad dash. Like, you didn't want to be the last one off the bus.
Yeah, it was nuts. Like, hold on, sorry about that.
No worries.
It was nuts. Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, it was definitely an experience, and you just gotta like, it just like I think the coolest part about it is just how you just don't know just how much your life's going to change, right? Like, I mean, at that moment, I mean, that's the beginning of like, that's the end of who you were and the beginning of who you're about to become.
So once you get off the bus, obviously you're then under their command. What was boot camp like for you?
I think, I'll say this, like, as far as all the services, like, I mean, look, I'm not one of those guys who's like, oh, Marines are the best, blah, 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 blah. Right. I mean, we look the best for sure. But,
Yeah, I'll agree with that. The uniforms are damn good.
We look the best, and that's just because of the way we're built, right? If you look at the way that and I can go, that's a whole deep story of the way things are designed. But I'll say this, like, the Marine Corps is basically broken down. The boot camp, I will say this about the Marine Corps. The boot camp, they've got the best boot camp there is. They've got it down to an art. You talk about something that every company should try to incorporate, and everybody, right? Everybody who has something, it doesn't matter, a brand or whatever. The Marine Corps has got, like, they know the way to build Marines, to build people to believe in the institution and a cause bigger than them. Like, there's nobody who's going to take more pride in who they are than a fucking Marine, right? And I mean, and it's built by design, because if you look at their boot camp, you got 3 months, right? So the first month of it is them just breaking you down and showing you how weak you are as an individual. It's them basically just, it's kind of like the reprogramming of, hey, you can try to do things the way that you used to, but this is why they don't work. And let me show you how they do not work, right? And so it's like the ultimate suck fest. And then what they do is the next month is they teach you the history. They teach you the history of the great things that Marines did, and that they've gone, Way City, you talk about where they were instilled, the history of it, right? And then they spend the last month training you on how to live up to those people that came before you, that they built up in your mind, and to live up to the standards for them. Because if you look at the uniform, the blood stripes, every aspect of it has a meaning of people who came before you. Everything does. And there's so much thought put behind everything. And that's what makes Marines different. The only thing that makes Marines different than anybody else is the standards that we hold ourselves to, right? I mean, we will hold each other to a standard that dictates we'll accept nothing less than being the best. That's why we're so fucking miserable all the time. We're always right? I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because, and we do it, right? It's out of design because it's attention to detail. It's like, like we are so focused on the small shit. And it's like the dumbest shit, right? Did you shave today? All this crazy shit. But it's for a reason, to make sure that we continue to make each other the best that we can fucking be at all times, right?
And you speak about the branding. I think, me and Steve graduated in 2007, and I remember the recruiting advertisements coming in post 9/11. I'd say the Marine Corps was probably the most memorable one for me. You got a uniform at the very end.
Yeah.
We're proud of few of the Marines, and very simple compared to, you look at the Navy and now the Army ones seem to be kind of simplifying a little bit more in the last few years compared to then. But so in boot camp, did you have any memorable instructors?
Oh yeah, I remember every one of them. We had a senior drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Corsi. We had Sergeant Brady, and then we also had Sergeant Lee. And Sergeant Lee was our kill hat. Brady was our whatever, drill hat, whatever they call it, right? And it was just, I like the first 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, it's a soul searching time. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, you guys know. I mean, it's just one of those times. Like, man, you gotta breathe from the fire hose, and then once you start figuring out, kind of the aspects of it, and once you start and once you stop fighting it and you just start embracing it, that's when you can start having fun with it.
I'll full disclosure, I never went military. I went the fluff route of 5 years of college and drinking and partying in a frat house. So you're gonna have to. So a kill hat. What's that now?
Yeah. So basically, what it is like they design it. You've got three instructors. Your senior drill instructor is kind of like the guy who oversees everything. He's kind of like the dad of the. He's like the savior of all of it, right? And then you've got your kill hat, and his job is literally like you talk about the hardest job I think in the Marine Corps is to be a kill hat. I mean, those guys, they do nothing but fuck your life up 24/7. They play games with you. They destroy you. Like, their entire job is to just make you as miserable as possible, right? And then you've got your drill hat, who's more there as a instructor, right, to teach you these things and to develop you and train you to get you, to the next whatever we're doing, right?
Any memories that you look back on? Whoops, sorry. Go ahead, Steve.
I was gonna say, I always thought that was like the hardest fucking job in the Army, was being that guy that's just on you like 24 hours a day. Because like while you're there, yeah, it sucks. But like looking back on it, like that dude like never got to go home.
Oh.
He's got to scream all day. Like I'd get through like 3 days and my voice would be gone. And I always had people that would be like, man, you should go to drill sergeant school. Like you can project, you can be an asshole when you want to be. And I'm like, fuck that. I don't want to do that job.
Yeah. I mean, like seriously, like I know some guys, some of my buddies now, I've been drill instructors and stuff. And like those guys will have 4 or 5 uniforms because they sweat through them all day long. Like they don't go home. Like the kill hat guy is like the newest guy on the team, right? He's the newest drill instructor.
Yep.
He's got to do like I don't know how many cycles it is as a kill hat, and then he goes up to a drill hat, and then a drill hat goes up to a senior, right? And I mean, those guys, I'm telling you, those guys are just, and the females too. Like they are just, I mean, they are the backbone they're the foundation of all of our services. So it's just it's incredible people do that job. I could never do it. I could never fucking do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I had a lot of crazy stories, man. Like, they would play so many games. I'll never forget. So we had this one room, and it was like, I swear it wasn't 6 foot by 8 foot maybe, right? And it was we call it the Maytag room, right? So that's where our washer and dryer were. So we called it the Maytag room or whatever. And there was a washer and dryer in there. So anyways, we the kill hat was just like, he always had this weird voice, and he always said very well, very well, very well. And so like he would go through and he checked something, and he was like, very well, everybody to the Maytag room. And we're like, what? There's 120 of us in here. It's like one of the first few days. And man, we had to fit all of us in there. And he closed the door. And dude, we're like suffocating in there. And the senior comes out, and the senior's like, drill instructor Sergeant Lee. And Sergeant Lee was like, yes, senior drill instructor. He goes, where's the recruits? And he goes, I haven't seen them. And he goes, are they in the fucking Maytag room? And he goes, yes, senior drill instructor. And he goes, get them the fuck out. One of them's going to die. He's like, very well. Very well. We're going to have to go to another room. And he put us in one smaller. And then the senior drill instructor came out, and he's like, just certainly get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here right now. And so, like, I got to the point to where, like, I was doing pretty good, right? Like, it was getting harder to break me. I would test the drill instructors a little bit, like just like, yeah, whatever. Like, you could smoke me all day. Let's do it, And so what he would do is, drill instructor Sergeant Lee. So you had the lights would come on in the morning, right? And everybody had to be in their rack. So everybody has to be in their rack when the lights come on. And it's like, because there are rules about how they can do this. Like it's a strict schedule and like all that. And so like he would always tell me, he goes, about after a month and a half in, he goes, hey, listen, you need to be ready. I don't know how you're going to do it. Just make it magically happen, but you need to be ready by the time the lights come on, because I got something special for you every morning from now on. And I'm like, okay. So like I would sleep. I wouldn't even sleep under my blanket because the bed had to be made. So what I would do is I would take boot bands and I would make my bed so tight and I would sleep on top of it. And I would get dressed in the head before everybody came in, and then I'd just jump up and I was ready to go. And he would take me out every morning around the back while everybody had like a 30-minute cleanup, and he would just make me roll in the sand, and he'd spray me with water in the sand and shit like that. So I had to start my day off fucking sandy.
Now, From other guests on the show, I've heard that you don't want to be someone that sticks out. You want to be invisible to the drill instructors. It sounds like you were.
I stuck out.
Yeah.
I stuck out.
So after boot camp, where did you go from there?
So I graduated boot camp, and then I went to Camp Geiger, North Carolina. Actually, well, I mean, I came home for like 10 days of we call it boot leave, and then turned around and went back to Camp Geiger, North Carolina. Completed infantry training out there, and then turned around and I was an 0311, just a basic infantryman, and then got stationed in Hawaii. And so went out there. I was with 3rd Battalion, 3rd Marines, and got out there Thanksgiving weekend. Right around Thanksgiving leave. Got out there, and then I was out there, and then a sniper NDOC came up maybe January, February of that year. And then I tried out for that. I wanted to do that. Thought it was pretty cool. And then actually joined the sniper platoon, did the NDOC and all that. And then right after that, it was pretty cool because we were heading out on deployment in July for Iraq. And they had a sniper school dropout. And so usually you have to go on a deployment and then come back and go to sniper school. But I was the only guy in the platoon that was qualified to go, that had all the prerequisites, all the, everything you needed to get in. So they're like, look, you can either go home on pre-deployment leave or you can go to sniper school. And I was like, done. I'm going to sniper school. I don't need to see my family.
So, hey, Dakota, I'm Brian. I don't know, you probably see it, but kind of a buff. I've read pretty much every book. I have definitely read your book. You're one of what, like 3 people living that carry the Medal of Honor?
There's only 2 U.S. Marines since the Vietnam War, myself and Kyle Carpenter. There's I don't know how many there is, maybe I don't know. There's 90 or something, because most of them are from, I think we got a couple of World War II guys left. We got a bunch of Vietnam guys. And then there's I don't know, 11 or 12, something like that. I mean, most of them are Army. There's only, like I said, there's only 2 Marines living.
Yeah, you take it in pretty good stride, man. But I will let everybody on screen or that is listening that they don't just hand out the Medal of Honor. It's a huge deal, and most of the people that they do give it to are not alive.
Yeah, I don't know the statistics on it. I think there's only been in the total history of the award being given out, it's 5,000.
It's pretty slim. So I'm like, Gordon, how do you get these people on your show?
I chalk it up to a lot of my math answers in college. PFM, or pure fucking magic.
Yeah,
I like that.
I gotta say, listening to you, Dakota, man, it's goosebumps, and I appreciate it. So that's my breakaway. But the thing I was going to ask, based on the thing that you were last talking about, now you're talking about the Marine snipers in sniper school. That's usually the 3rd, and there aren't very many special groups in the Marines, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
Right. So what was a Generation Kill was a show that was sort of built around that. You seen that, or how do you feel about the way the 3rd is connected with you guys kind of wore those black caps, the watch caps, and is that true? Is that bullshit?
So I'll be honest with you, I've never seen it. What do you mean, the black hats, or what do you mean?
Yeah. They would wear those watch caps. Is that your unit designation? They were like, hey.
No,
I
mean, us, we, I always, the guys, the platoon I was in, and every platoon's different. We kind of took the approach that we are. I mean, look, we didn't look any different than anybody else. You know what I mean? We always. I mean, I will say this: when I first became a sniper, I was nasty. I was pretty nasty, as we call it. I had the low sleeves, I had the long hair. I mean, I always had the long hair for sure. I was always
the long hair, yeah.
I was always pushing the regs on that for sure. That never stopped. But I was kind of nasty, and then I was like that until I became a team leader. And then once I became a team leader, I started understanding the dynamics and that when I go in and I need to get a battalion commander to trust me to go out and run my own mission, I need to walk in and look as squared away as possible. If he can't be confident that I can get that I don't walk in and I don't look like I can do it, then why would he ever believe in me doing the right thing outside? So we didn't do that. Are there some guys that have their own shit? I mean, of course, right?
Yep. So I've heard, but yeah.
Yeah, man.
So you went through the sniper program, and if I remember correctly, Dakota, you're one of the youngest or the youngest people to graduate that?
Yeah, I mean, at that time, I was probably, I was 18 years old, 18 years old, sniper in the Marine Corps. You can't get much younger than that. So, I would say, I don't know that I'm the youngest sniper, Marine sniper ever, but I would say at that time I was the youngest sniper in the Marine Corps.
And why the sniper program? I know it's definitely not a cakewalk, to say the least. And
I always looked at the guys like the guys who were snipers, and I always looked up to them as like they were always out, they were working out all the time. Like they were always making themselves better. They were always, they were just always into something. And I really liked the challenge of it. And I just, I joined them. And yeah, I mean, the guys, it was mainly the guys, I looked up to the guys in it.
And how was it for you? I know very little about the sniper school, but I know one of the big things, you got to make your own ghillie suit. And then there's the
yeah.
Little stock up to the instructor without getting caught. I mean,
They do the same thing every school.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle. I struggled with it at first. It was something that was pretty hard for me, and then I ended up doing great. But you got to make your own ghillie suit. You make your own ghillie suit, and then you learn all about camouflage, concealment. And then you have to, you do stalk lanes, and you're graded. That's a section of the school that you're graded on. And, you start at 1,000 meters on a stalk lane. You've got, your left lateral limit, your right lateral limit, kind of like a bowling lane. And then you have to, get within a certain distance of, I think it's like, they'll name it. Usually it's like 300 yards, I think. I can't remember exactly what it was, but you get within a certain distance, you stalk up, you got a certain time, you usually 4 or 5 hours, and you get within a certain distance, and then you take a shot, right, with a blank at the instructor. And then what happens is they have an instructor out there walking, and he gets within, I think it's 15 meters, and he'll stand there, and then the spotter or the target, the instructor who's there on the glass, is looking at you with optics and is looking for you. And so he gets a chance to walk the instructor on you. Like he'll say okay, three steps to the left, 1 step back, and then he'll say sniper at your feet. And if you're there, well, you're done. If you're not there, then then what happens is he's looking in that area, and you have to take another shot. So you got to make sure that your muzzle blast is all laid out. You got to make sure that all that, if you're on the ground and there's dirt in front of you, you got to do shit like pour water down there before you've done this, and all this other stuff to make sure that he can't see the muzzle blast.
Yeah, like the dust from the, yeah.
And so then he gets another chance to walk the instructor on you. And then if he doesn't catch you, then if the instructor comes over, he looks at your weapon, make sure that your adjustment on your scope was right, because if your adjustment on your scope wasn't right, well, then you missed. And so, make sure you did everything right. And then, then you get 100 and you pass.
Do they make you exfil too without getting caught? Because I know they did that to us, and guys would get sloppy because they'd be like, sweet, I got the shot off, and then they'd go to move and they'd get fucking nailed every time.
Yep, exactly.
So if you're spotted in that first run, do you get another shot, or is that a complete fail and you're out of the program?
I think well, so like, well, I mean, you get so it's like it's I think it's like I think you get 10 stalks maybe. I can't remember the exact amount, and you got to have a certain percentage to pass, right? So like you can fail, you can botch a couple of them, you know, and there's different like scores for it. I can't remember all of it, but yeah, I mean, you're not going to fail just for failing one, but yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I imagine I know there's a lot of math with being a sniper. Did you excel in math in school?
Yeah, I mean, like math is like my strong suit. But yeah, there's a lot of math. I mean, you know, I never thought in school that I would use the Pythagorean theorem, and I used it quite a bit.
I know Stephen Casey can attest to it. I will go great lengths out of my way to avoid doing anything past basic arithmetic.
Yeah.
Gordon, can you count?
Yeah, I don't have that luxury. So.
Well, I mean, we just got colors. What was it, last year? So after you're in Hawaii, I mean, how long were you down in Hawaii, and when did you get deployed?
Well, so I left. You know, I graduated boot camp, or I graduated sniper school, and then turned around and left like a week and a half later for Iraq. And so we were in Fallujah, Iraq, in a place called Karma. And I was there for a short period of time. I ended up getting bit on my hand by a spider and lost movement and had nerve damage. I had two surgeries. Actually, I had two surgeries in Fallujah Surgical. And then they ended up sending me to Balad, then Al-Assad, back to, I was in Lunchstool for a little bit, working on my hand, and then it ended up sending me back home. And,
That's so fucking random.
Yeah, I know, it was terrible. Like you can probably
that was a recluse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks.
It's terrible.
No.
So, yeah, so I got sent
I've
home.
seen pictures of recluse spiders, and that's as close as I ever care to come.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I got sent home. I was home for a while, and probably 2 years before I got another opportunity to deploy, because my unit was still over there for another 5 months, and then yeah, I mean, it was a dark spot. You know, I came back, lost one of my best friends from high school. He got killed in a car wreck. Lost another close friend. She got killed while I was home on leave. You know, it's kind of just like a roll the dice, and then I come back and I'm just so down because like my guys are over there, you know, they're deployed. I didn't, you know, yeah,
that sucks.
It was a shitty time, you know, and you know, the last thing you want to do is be what they call a boot again, right? Like you know, most of it's just the fact of being able to say that you've gone through the deployment, so that you know you've got that under your belt, and so it's kind of shitty, you know. And I ended up becoming a sniper team leader. I went to Mountain Sniper School, graduated there, and then became a sniper team leader and had my own team, and we were crushing it. Getting ready to head back to Iraq again, and then I got an opportunity to go to Afghanistan, and I jumped on it because I knew we didn't really have much going on in Iraq when we were going over there, and you know we had no mission for snipers, so I was like, I'm going to go jump on this opportunity for Afghanistan. You know, I went with an embedded training team, and that's where I went.
So, what year did you jump into that position?
2009.
Okay.
And what was going through your mind? Well, the first time and when you in Iraq, and then when you went to Afghanistan. What was it like when you first got there?
It's hot. I mean, that's probably the most distinct piece of it is when you get off, you know, that airplane, and just when the first time you breathe that air.
Oh my God.
It's just remembering. It's just you remember that as much as you remember those footsteps walking on the damn bus.
It's like the sun's pushing you down.
It is. It's just like
oppressive.
It's like you're breathing out of a hairdryer. And
There's an apt analogy.
You're like, oh shit, right? And you know, I don't think Afghanistan, or Iraq, when we left for Iraq, I'll never forget, I'll never forget that, like, because we were on a civilian plane and we took off, I think it was Hickam maybe, and we're taking off, and I'll never forget, like, I remember just looking out the window and looking at, as long as I could, looking at the earth and seeing Hawaii, as we're taking off. And I'll never forget it just hitting me that, this could be the last time that I ever see the United States of America. And so it was kind of surreal feeling, right? And then, the second time, whenever I headed over to Afghanistan, I just, it wasn't as dramatic because I was leaving from Japan, Okinawa, Japan. But, I do remember it was, and honestly, we didn't even think we were going, like, we didn't even know that we were going to be, the guys before me, they'd only been in one gunfight in 9 months. So we didn't think it was going to be much kinetic. And, it was just different,
When
so what month was it during 2000?
So left July, and then, again, July in 2009 and got there. I got to my base at the end of July in 2009. And, I'll never forget, like, coming in, it's like so, like, mountainous where we were at. It's like crazy mountains. And, pulled in there, and the guys were like, yeah, man, it's an easy spot. We're going to do this. We got one gunfight one time. Don't think there's going to be much action. It's going to be a long deployment. You're not going to be doing much. And, holy shit, that was not the truth.
Was that before, or did you join Team Monty right away?
That was Team Monty when we got up there.
Okay.
So we all went up there. It was myself, Kennefic, Lieutenant Johnson, and then Doc Layton.
And when you went to Team Monty, there's a photograph in your book of you. I know you came under sniper fire. And you just hop on the 50 cal and start putting rounds to range. Was that on the way up to Team Monty, or have you already been stationed there for a while?
No, that was later on. The first gunfight we got into is me. It was crazy. Me and Kennefic was actually in the head. We had like a little trailer. We had a little trailer on this, like, to the side of where we all stayed at, and there was a trailer there, and it had like showers in it, like 3 showers or 4 showers, 3 or 4 toilets and some sinks and stuff. And we were actually in there.
I was stopping for a second. It's funny. You're like, there was like these amenities from home, and that's like your memory from it. Like Gordon's asking you about shooting a machine gun and like.
Yeah, well, I remember when we were standing, like, me and him were standing in there and shaving, and all of a sudden, like, I got done first, and Kennefic's in there, and all of a sudden I open the door, and I just hear, like, it's like when you hit a paper with a pencil, right? It's just like crack, 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 crack. And I was like, are we getting fucking shot at? And I looked around, and then I started seeing, like, some dust from the ground, like, popping up, and I'm like, fuck yeah, we're getting shot at. And then all of a sudden I hear like a doom, 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 doom. And then, like, next thing you know, you got boom, 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 of mortars. I was like, oh yeah, it's fucking on, right? And so me and Kennefic, I'm like, Kennefic, we're getting fucking shot at. And so, like, he runs out, and like Lieutenant Johnson, him and Layton, they ran into this bunker. We had this, this big HESCO bunker, and they're in there, and I'm like, fuck this. Like, I'm getting down, like, it's on. And so I run into to our hooch, we called it, right? And it had no protection, like, none. And so, like, I run in there and I grab my flak and I run back into the bunker, and I'm trying to get a plan together, and they're like sitting in there. And I said, well, are we going to get down or what? And they're like, yeah. I mean, let's talk to the Army. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to go get your all shit. So I ran in there and grabbed their shit for them, brought it back to them, threw it to them. And then I grabbed the 240 that I kept in my room, and I grabbed two cans of ammo. And I'm like, dude, we're taking all these rounds there was like a mountain right next to us. I'm like, we're taking all these rounds from over there. I'm like, I'm gonna go up there on the front corner bunker, and I'm gonna see if I can see anything. So like I run over there and I crawled up in this bunker, and we got some Afghan soldiers up in there, and they're shooting and doing their job. And I see.
You're talking about ETT?
Yeah, I'm an embedded training team. And so it was just 4 U.S. and 80 Afghans. And so like I run up there and I'm standing next to him. I'm like, where's he at? And they're like, oh, they're up there and by the cell phone tower. And dude, I see this guy. He's down at the bottom of this hill and he shoots this fucking RPG right at us, right? And it hits the road right in front of us. And I like see him, and Kennefic is sitting right next to me. And the guy like there's this little road that goes up to this cell phone, like there was like a little cell phone tower, and then on the back side of it there was like where he was probably parked or something, right? And so like he takes off running up that hill, and I just I fucking hammered him, right? And it was beautiful. And so I'm like getting down up there, and then like Kennefic and them, I run out of ammo, so they bring me more ammo, and this gunfight goes on for probably 45 minutes to an hour. And it was so funny, man. Like it was the start of all of it, and then we started getting hit all the time.
So when you're part of the 4-man team of U.S. soldiers, but you're there as advisors working with the Afghan army, kind of training them in.
Yeah.
When you're not dealing with firefights, what's your day-to-day like with them?
I mean, look, I love my guys. Like my Afghan soldiers, some of the best dudes I've ever met in my entire life. They're really good guys, and I had a lot of we got close. Like they're like family. Like they were as close to me as the Marines were, and we're all out there together. We might have come from 2 different places. We might believe in 2 different things, but so does probably everybody sitting on this damn call right now. You know what I mean? And I think that, once we set those differences aside, we're all just human beings just trying to do the best we can for something that we believe in. And, we did everything from training them on weapons to teaching them logistics to, you name it, we did it, right?
I don't think a lot of people understand that, though, is like we're fighting with them. It's not just like we're not going over there to fight. We're fighting like less than 1% of them. Like 99% of them are good people. And I had the same experience where probably like 2/3 of our force was ANA, Afghan National Army, and we went out with them on every single patrol. They got killed way more than we did. Like they did the lion's share of the work.
And I'll tell you this: if they had the equipment we did, they'd be way better at fighting than we are.
Oh yeah, some of those dudes are crazy. We had one dude on top of the wall and we were shooting, and he's like, "I'm going over there, cover me," and he's pointing across the field. And my buddy was on the other side. I was like, "You're fucking crazy," and he goes, "No crazy, cover me." And this dude legitimately jumps off a 10-foot wall and just starts booking it straight towards the enemy across open field. I'm like, what a badass! I don't know how you can get shot.
They've been doing this their whole life.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you might train martial arts and shit like that, but go fight a kid that get in a street fight with a kid that grew up fighting his whole damn life.
Right. Yeah.
You were the first advisor team. Oh, sorry, Steve, go ahead.
One sec. I was going to say, like, what you were saying about them, like, living this. I remember the first firefight I was in, and, like, it was a different guy on my team getting shot at. It's not my sector of fire, which is, like, the hardest fucking thing to maintain sector discipline when you're getting shot at from a different direction. And there's, like, 3 kids, like, 50 meters in front of me, and they just sit down in the middle of the field. They're just watching the show because, like, that's their life. Like, they've been living that since day one.
That's their life. Do you want me to turn my lights on so you can see me? It got dark here.
No, I can see you just fine, but if you want, whatever.
Yeah, we can still see you. It just looks like you're just floating in space right now. So.
Dakota Meyer reporting from the moon, everyone.
It's kind of a green screen situation, actually. Sorry about the pop, man. When I was just moving the screen back and forth, or what?
No, you're good, man. That's good.
All right.
Yeah. So, So you know, that's kind of what the everyday life was with them. I mean, they're just damn good guys. I mean, I miss them as much as I miss my teammates. You know.
So, doing the training thing, was that something that you kind of expected to be doing, or
Yeah,
was that
I mean,
just okay?
that's what our primary role is going over is to train them and advise them.
Well, I guess I'm talking like kind of more before, like when you were going through sniper school and all that, and working, and then
Oh,
like became a team lead, and
no, I mean this is just something they pick random people for. You know, they try to get various ranks, various skill sets, so you've got a more of a variety. But no, but you know what? Like the Marine Corps teaches you, like they're really big on train the trainer. You know, like after you, as you know, the more you become in leadership, the more you know. I mean, they teach you communication skills, they teach you how to teach classes and stuff like that. So it wasn't something that was not, it wasn't accustomed to me, right? Like I could teach people how to do my job.
okay,
And when you mentioned when you first get there, you meet Hafez, who was kind of the guy in charge with the ANA. Obviously,
No, so he was my interpreter. He was my interpreter, right? So he was a
interpreter.
sergeant major.
Okay.
But he used to be a sergeant major of the Afghan National Army, right? So just a really damn good guy. His name was his name's actually Fazel. We can say it now because he's actually in America now. We put Hafez because then it was a security issue,
Right.
but Fazel and this guy just, I mean, he was good. I mean, he was good. He was better than any of the Afghan soldiers. I mean, he was damn good.
You mentioned in the book, when he first meets you and your team, he kind of has his script that he's now said who knows how many times to other advisors coming in. And you talk about how you were hanging out with and eating with the Afghans. Was that standard with other teams that they've worked with, or did you take that?
I don't think so. I mean, most time the Americans stuck as the Americans and the Afghans stuck as the Afghans. And I think that, honestly, I think those decisions of the relationships that I formed with them is ultimately what decided the destiny of if I lived or died. And, I mean, you think about it, right? The place where everybody connects, you think about you as your family. Like, where's the time that, if you hold the rules, that everybody, even after, whether it's before they leave in the morning, whether it's in the afternoon, where do people usually go have meetings at? Right? Around a table. Around a table, right? Breaking bread. You look at most of the times when you go back to the Bible, right? Like it was breaking bread. It was, that's where business gets done. And that's where relationships are formed, and that's where bonds are formed. And that is something, I mean, you look at Thanksgiving, you look at Easter, you look at all these things. Where do we all come together at a table? So I was really big on showing these people that look, I'm in it with them. Like, I'm not going to be just another American group that comes in and leaves them. Like, I'm here, I believe in my cause, and you have to earn that respect, right? Like, you have to earn that respect. I mean, you talk about these guys live it. They live there. It's their country. And like you do this for 9 months and go home, and they don't. They stay forever. They have to fight their way to go see their family, right? So it's one of those deals like of respect, and you got to show them. Like, these guys have been in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of gunfights, and they've never seen you fight. They don't know if you're going to fight. They don't know how you're going to show up. All they know is of what the last person showed them. And that's kind of what it is. And so you've got to come in and you've got to earn your spot at the table with them. I mean, they'll do small stuff. Like when you would come in and you'd shake their hand at first, they'd pull your hand towards them and turn it over to where their hand's on top. Right. And that's like a show of dominance. And they do shit like that to test you, to show you that, like, we're dominant. I mean, and it's just part of the game,
Knowing that after a while, if you met somebody new, for example, and you were to turn your hand dominant or correct it so you're even keel, is that a sign of disrespect then? Kind of showing, hey, no, I know what you're doing.
It's not a sign of disrespect. I mean, I think you have to do it to kind of you have to, and you definitely like. I would never walk up to them and jerk their hand towards me like that. But I tell you this, I wouldn't let them. I let them know real quick that they're not going to do it to me, right? Like if they did it, I'd jerk it back and look straight at them, like they'd know. So I mean, it's little stuff like that. They want to see. They're going to see how much they can walk on. You know what I mean? Like they're going to see if you're going to buck up or not. Like that's, that's how they do it.
You talk about how they had a lot of questions about our culture being over here.
Yeah.
Did you ask them a lot of questions? Did you have stuff to ask them as well? Was it a give and take?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we would sit up. I'll never forget. We had over top of they had like their chow hall, and so what we would do is we go through. I would get a meal just like them, right? Usually it was potato, rice, a little bit of meat, and then some bread, right? And so we would go up on top because it's so damn hot in the whatever you want to call it, the chow hall. So we would get on top of the roof at night and sit on top of the roof and eat. And we would sit up there and we'd eat and we'd just talk. I had a lot of good guys. Gul Rahim, Dot Ali. I mean, a lot of guys just really close to, and Chennai, and we just kind of talk about home, right? Like I get to know them, their family. They do the same with me.
So what were you guys doing for fun when you're over there besides just, chatting and getting to know each other? I mean, did you have much downtime? Did you get a chance?
We played a lot of damn volleyball. So we built a volleyball court, and we built a volleyball court on base, and then we took sandbags and filled them, and that was like the boundary line. And so we played volleyball all the time, and just we did that, and then I would always I like to go out the front gate and play soccer with the kids and shit. Just always trying to do whatever I could.
You ever try them at snowball fights?
You ever try what?
You ever try them at snowball fights?
No.
Because we did that once and we got our asses kicked. Like they know how to throw a snowball.
Usually, whatever they challenge you at, they know they're already going to fucking beat you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Usually the odds are going to be stacked against you.
Did you guys ever have a chance to call home and keep in touch with family and friends? Did you FaceTime or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I use Skype a lot. We had a sat phone just in case. And I mean, I tried to call home as much as I could. It definitely until the gunfight started, right? When shit got really bad, like I quit calling home much after September 8th. Like I don't think I called home much more after that.
And I want to get into September 7th here. Not to give any spoilers away from any listeners that haven't read the book yet, but now you were at an outpost not far. There's a FOB, or Forward Operating Base Joyce, which is, I think you went over it in the book about how far that is from the nearest, large base, or I don't know if on that.
It's not. Yeah, it's down next to Asadabad.
Right. Now, did you have time to? Did you have any R&R or to be able to come home during this deployment? I know Steve came home. You had a 2-week window there. You came back.
Yeah, that was just because our sergeant major fucked up the timeline. Because 9 months is supposed to be no R&R, but he had it 273 days or some shit. So he fucked that one up and had to give us R&R. But yeah, typically
well, so
9 months. No.
They had actually gave us they were going to give us R&R. Yeah, I mean I didn't know if I was going to take it or not. I was so nervous to leave my team. I had honestly. So we were going to take it in rotations on the team, and I had said that I'll go last. I just wanted to decide last. I really didn't want to go home because I just wanted to stay over there. You know what I mean? But we were going to get R&R.
And being out that far, I imagine that the USO doesn't send entertainers out to FOBs or outposts like yours. I mean, did you have to go back and see anything?
No, I mean, no, where I was at, I mean, it was you know, I mean, you didn't really. No, we if we had generators and power, we were happy.
Well, just to backtrack a little bit. So in the book, you mentioned that you wanted to, or you're kind of itching for that firefight, and you were sent to Team Monty. And to quote from the book, that way headquarters didn't have to put up with me on a daily basis. You're.
Yeah, I mean, I was a. Look. I'm not gonna say I was anything special, but I was good at my job. I'm not good at a lot, but I was good at what I did because I dedicated my whole life to it. I loved it. I like being a sniper was not. It was not a. Being a Marine sniper was not a. It wasn't a job to me. It was a way of life, and I was engulfed in it. Like I lived it. I loved it. And with that comes a level of ego, confidence. I got into quite a few gunfights up to that point, and I thought they were good gunfights. I thought that was look, I'd been in combat, and I thought I was good. You know what I mean? I thought I was good. Every firefight I'd been in, not that any of them were fair, right? Like, not that you ever want a gunfight to be fair. You always want to have. Look, there's one thing that we truly believe in as Americans when we get in gunfights, and that's overwhelming firepower. That's for a reason.
As long as we got Cavs, it's overwhelming, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I would say that like I was always looking for a fight. Like I was always, if I could instigate a fight, if I could do something to set, if I seen a spot that was, kind of mediocre, or if I seen a spot that was a little bit hot, like I'd throw some gas on it, right, just to get the fucking fire going.
It was Sergeant Johnson, right, that assigned you to Team Monty?
You Lieutenant Johnson.
Yeah, Lieutenant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so I went up there, and headquarters didn't really like it. The guys who were running the teams didn't really like me. They didn't care for me. My leadership, they weren't. The further I could be away from them, the further I could be out of their hair, was the better.
Was it just a personality difference, if you will?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was the only sniper on the team, and I just, I wasn't a yes man. I was going to ask you why. Why are we doing this? Why are we going on this mission? Like, does this make sense? Do we have a reason to go on this mission, or are we just out fucking off and taking unnecessary risks, right? Like, is this like, are you trained up to speed? Like, I would call people out. And are you qualified to do this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't just going to say yes, and I wasn't just going to go with the flow. If it wasn't right, it wasn't fucking right, and I would call it out. And so, that is when you've got weak leadership like I had, that's an issue.
I was gonna say a good leader will recognize that.
Yeah.
Because I used to do it with my team leader, like why the fuck are we going this way on Expo? We're gonna get shot at, and he wouldn't always agree with me, but he'd always listen to me, and like that's the mark of a good leader. But yeah, if you got a weak leader, and yeah, I agree with you. That's when it becomes an issue. But
would you say that's you did that out of your experience, just from life and how you were raised, plus you going to sniper school, and that's a whole nother education on top of itself? Or now here we are almost 10 years later, or a little over 10 years. Was it just I'm Dakota and I'm at this point 19, 20, just kind of being a young pain in the ass, if you will? Because looking back at myself 10 years ago, I was a complete dumbass, and I thought I was right, but now hindsight being 2020.
No, I'll say this. Like, I never asked questions that I didn't know. I never got out of my lane. I was just good at my job. I knew what the fuck to ask. I knew, the one thing that always stuck with me in sniper school, I had a guy named Michael Skinner, and he always told me, he said, look, ultimately you are, so when nobody else is a sniper around you, you are what's called the SEO, right? And sniper, you are the ultimate decision of how to employ a sniper. Nobody else knows how. And we do a lot of mission planning. That's something that was very huge to us, of the detailed planning of all this. And so when it came down to that, and when it came down to me being a part of something that other Marines were part of, if I didn't know what, if I had a question, I was going to ask it, because other guys' lives were on the line. And so, it was never out of just being argumentative. It was honestly out of being a professional and being a professional in my craft, and wanting to make sure that we had all thought this out.
It's just the mark of a good infantryman, though, is being able to be that asshole when you need to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's being a professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of the missions that you were on over there was the key leader engagements. What was local engagement like, and what were the short and long-term goals that command had with that?
Yeah, I mean, look, ultimately you want to go out and build relationships, right? The locals also knew the rotations of when new guys came in and out. I mean, they know it probably as good as anybody. Like, so going and building relationships with them, of coming in and making sure they know that you've got security, figuring out their concerns, trying to win over the as they called it at that time, the hearts and minds of your areas you're in. And I'm going to tell you something, like there's something to it, right? Like if you go in and because there's two levels of I call Taliban, or enemy, right? You've got the real Taliban. I call it the Taliban with the capital T, the dudes that are trained, that come in and look, everybody hates them. Like, even the locals hate them. Like look, everybody wants them gone. Like, they're the bad guys. And then you've also got this level of respect. Like, you go in and you don't respect these elders, and well, you might have an IED on the road tomorrow, right? You gotta go in and win over the majority of the locals in order to stop the free movement of the Taliban, right?
And you mentioned, you'd go in, you'd have tea with the elders. I mean, was it your Team Monty that was kind of leading that, or did you just kind of go in there and be the guiding hand, if you will, for the?
We always had our own area, right? So at Cop Monty, like anybody in that district, Asmar district is what it was called. We were always, going out and having meetings with the key leaders, going in, checking in with them, just going to the district centers, doing things like that, like covering their polling elections and stuff like that. Hey, what's going through here? Getting intel on the bad guys coming through, and things like that. Always just trying to do what we can to make the world a little bit better.
And I know there's a lot of tribal politics over there. I mean, how did you guys navigate those tribal politics and work with them? If elders didn't necessarily agree with B, did you try to bridge that gap, or just kind of worry about them as individuals?
I mean, look, I wasn't there to change Afghanistan. I wasn't there to raise Afghans. I wasn't there to try to make them have a different place, right? I was there to kill evil. And I think, you got to kind of separate yourself from it, right? And you got to, look, you're on their land. I mean, how would you feel if I was over here, if they came over here, or, how would you feel if I came to your place? I'd probably get a little bit better greeting if I went through the head of the household than I would if I just went through there and said, hey, look, I got more guns than you and shit, and I'm going to come and do whatever I want. So I always took that spin on it. I just treated people like I'd want to be treated. And I always tried to uphold that. And I always kept my word. That's another thing. Like, you don't want to promise something or say something that you're not going to back up, because, then you ultimately lose confidence. You lose trust. I mean, it's no different than friendships here. It's no different than relationships here. It's the same shit. Right. And, so that was kind of, I stayed out of the tribal stuff. I let them deal with that. Like, they have their own rules, their own laws. Let them do that. You don't want to get into that. I was literally there just to help them get rid of the enemy that we all hate.
Which I enjoyed hearing that from you on other podcasts and in the book, because it's a different spin, I think, from what we're given here. Like I said, I've never served, so just the news media the quick headline that you might find on Facebook scrolling through.
Well, most people don't want to do research and think for themselves, right?
Right. That sounds like
exactly.
work. And who does that?
Exactly. So they just, they want a quick answer to everything, and they want a black and white answer to everything. They want to live in the gray, but they want a black and white answer to everything. And it's like, it's a complicated deal.
And going back to, being at Team Monty, it was early September while you were up there, 2007, was it? 2009, excuse me. You guys came under rocket fire, or rocket and machine gun fire. And I just want to read the opening paragraph from chapter 6. A few weeks later, it was combat outpost Monty's turn to feel the full force of the rockets. In early September, just before dinner one evening, I heard the thump thump of 2 rockets launched from tubes somewhere on the hill above us. We started taking concentrated rocket fire from the Afghan side of the base. We had taken RPG shots before, of course, but several rockets incoming, barrage style, was a new experience. The Dushmen were firing on a direct lay from the hilltop from the southeast, while the gunners were looking straight down at Monty. You go on later in chapter 6 to talk about, your team knew that there's a possibility they weren't coming home. But the way I kind of interpret it in the book, it seems like that was your sobering moment, if you will. That's when, the old adage, shit got real. Would you agree with that?
I would say for the team, yeah. I think it was probably the closest that anybody had come to dying on my team. A rocket hit right next to Johnson and Kennefic, and then we got hammered hard. That rocket attack they were dialed in. And I'm going to tell you something. There's nothing I hate more. I can't stand the noise of bottle rockets, because that's exactly what a rocket sounds like.
Fuck no. It's a whistling sound, right? That fluttering it makes when it goes through the air. Fuck that.
It's the worst, right? And even though you duck when you hear the whistling, it doesn't matter. If the damn thing was going to hit you, it already hit you. There's no reason in ducking. So I hate rockets. You can shoot at me all day, but dude, that's one thing I still can't stand. I can't stand the sound, the thought of rockets. But they hit close. They hit a tower I was in. A guy lost a leg in there with me. I had to carry him down 2 flights of stairs that were exposed on the outside of it as a rocket hit the side of that building. It was just a really bad day. And afterwards, I think it was the other guys finally took it serious. They just, you could tell that it woke them up. And, we all had to talk, man, that, we're not all going to make it home. And that was on September 7th. No, September 6th, because that was on a Sunday, September 6th. And then on the 7th, we went down to Monty. We were on Monty. And then on the 7th, we went down to Fob Joyce, where we met up with the rest of the team and got briefed. And then that next morning, we went out September 8th to Ganjgal.
Yeah, so September 7th is when you got the call from Fob Joyce, they had to send down the Afghans. But they didn't really tell you what was going on. And then
you couldn't tell it over the cell phones. You don't want to talk over those cell phones. They're unsecured. You never know. It's a big risk for any of the word to get out. So you kind of try to keep it under wraps as much as you can, especially when working with a counter force.
And so then you guys get the call to come down with them shortly thereafter. When you're at Fob Joyce, they tell you, hey, you're going into the Ganjgal town, or is it Ganjgal Valley or Ganjgal town?
Ganjgal Valley.
That's when Hafez said, something was off, or after talking to him, he goes, bad people, bad place.
Yeah.
And I know, so kind of walk me through what was going on through that lead up.
We got a brief on it. I brought up a couple of issues I didn't like about the mission. My team was not happy that they took me out of the mission and left me at the trucks. And Johnson and Kennefic were not happy about this. me and Rodriguez Chavez and the team had came up with what I did that day. We came up with that plan the night before. And it wasn't like I came up with this plan that like this was what we had agreed to do. And, Kennefic even argued with our first sergeant and like, nope, he's out, he's going to sit at the trucks and replaced me with a guy named Gunnery Sergeant Johnson. And Gunny Johnson was a good dude, just a good dude. And, so we were supposed to go in the next morning for a key leader engagement and go in and meet with the elders.
And so you went, obviously they sat you out. Is it just because you were asking questions or you're questioning their
Yeah, I think there's a lot to it. Like they looked at me as, more of it was they wanted to give up the opportunity to Gunny Johnson to go get in a gunfight, which is, okay, I guess he got it. Like, I guess he got in the gunfight, right? I mean, right. It's just a shitty, just the whole aspect behind it. Like, you can't justify why the fuck they did what they did,
So going up, you went into the valley that morning of. From your perspective, how were things going just out the get-go?
I mean, it's normal, the normal complacency with my leadership, like they were always complacent. I'll never forget one of them came up to me and was like, well, let's just hope we get back and we can eat chow at the chow hall. And it's just shit like that. Their priorities were off already. Their mindset wasn't there. Like I promise you, they didn't go in there ready to fucking fight. Like they didn't go in there with that. Like they didn't. Like the mission wasn't. It's just a bunch of bullshit. And so, I mean, this is what happens when you put guys who aren't warriors in to do warrior jobs, right? And so I'll never forget going in there. We were all nervous. And the whole ride in there, we were talking about home and just what we were going to do when we got home and stuff like that. Pulled in there, it's under darkness. And, when Kennefic got out, he said, I'll see you on the flip side, Meyer. And I'll never forget Dot Ali, like he yelled at me through the dark. And he said, he always called me Maeda. And he's like, see you later, Maeda. And actually, I think we used to say fuck you to each other. Like he liked that word. So he's like, fuck you, Maeda. And, they just went off in the dark, started heading into the valley.
So did your team actually get a chance to meet with the elders there, or did things just?
So Fazell was next to him when the gunfight kicked off, and Fazell says that because my team was in the front, and Fazell said that when Lieutenant Johnson greeted this huge guy with a beard, that the guy just basically they just opened up on him.
And that's when things kind of went to hell in a handbasket, if you will, from there.
Yeah, it went to a shit show.
So if you don't mind, just kind of for listeners that don't know the story and who haven't read the book, do you mind just walking us through the event?
Yeah, I mean, basically we went in. They went in, came under fire. After a while, me and Gunny Rodriguez Chavez, decided we had to go in and help. So we requested a few times to go in, and each time told no. And finally, we just went in. We drove the truck in. Rod drove the truck in, and I was in the turret. And we just went in and kept making trips, trip after trip, loading bodies in the back and trying to find my teammates. My teammates went missing. And then after about 6-8 hours, we finally found them in a trench, and they'd all been killed.
And throughout that firefight, you were denied artillery support, correct? And that was
we were pretty much
just a policy because you were too close to potential civilians. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean that was a policy that was put in, about a 30 to 45 days before that. This is what the policy read, the rules of engagement. It said that you cannot fire within a certain distance of a village unless, now you ready for this? Unless you have gone through the entire village and made sure that only the enemy is in there and no civilians.
That doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah, well, ask Stanley McChrystal.
That's ROE for you.
As an outsider looking in, it seems like there should be a clause there unless And
Well, they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be, right? Like they're
Right.
supposed to be. When you give your initials in any call for fire scenario, when you give your initials, it ultimately takes. It's supposed to, by doctrine, take the responsibility off of the people who are firing it, the firing commander or whatever, and put it ultimately on you because you are the eyes on the ground, right? And you technically should be the battle scene commander because you're on the ground. And the Army was not, they were not giving it to us.
That was what Swenson attempted to do, right? Was take that responsibility.
Yep.
Oh.
And I know you guys asked for air support as well, but there was also troops already in combat, which was taking the bulk of that response. But I know there's call for, or they said that Little Birds were 15 minutes out and called multiple times, but never showed. Was there ever a reason for that, or?
I mean, they were just caught up in a tick. It was actually Kiowas, and they were actually caught up in a tick. They were supporting a higher tier mission of an HVT up in the Cornwall Valley. So, and the SEALs who were in that gunfight were needing support. So they're a higher priority than us.
And listeners that haven't read the book, you really need to, because it's impossible to try to describe it shorthand of everything.
It's a long day.
Yes, you said 6-8 hours was the total gunfight.
Yeah, it was a really long day.
And you said already your team was killed over there. You managed to find them. The part that had me, I know it's on paper and I'm reading in front of me, but it's like a freaking blockbuster movie going on in front of me of the helicopter pilots that are assisting you and you driving in and out with Humvee, grabbing people along the way. Did you ever get a chance to meet up with the pilots afterwards?
Still close friends with a guy named his name's Salino Yossarian, and I mean, dude saved my life. I mean, he was flying. There was a couple times I literally could have jumped up and touched a skid on his aircraft, and he was shooting guys out the door of his aircraft with his M4.
There's just not enough money in the world to get me in a helicopter under normal situations, but this guy, he's literally flying and looking in through windows and calling in locations for you.
Yeah.
And you're talking to him directly on the radio at that point, correct?
I had my own radio on me, and so I was talking to him directly.
So and in the book you talk about, and I've heard you on other podcasts as well, you actually started going building to building yourself. And
so I was just starting to go. I was going to terrace to terrace. I never got up to the buildings. They were like kind of further up, and I never had a reason to get up in there. They were fighting from the buildings. They had strongholds in there, man, and just like, but they were trying to retreat too. Like, like after they seen that they weren't going to break us, like they started trying to get their ass back over the border.
And this was all, they had this very well planned out from what it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, this is
because there's a delay in the mission in the first place, correct? So they had full opportunity, a good 24 hours at least to set up?
It got leaked. So we had to, when you're working with when we were working with the Afghan border police, the Afghan national police, and that, like, you like, they are shady as shit, right? So
always the police.
Yeah, it's always the police. I mean, the police
every time.
Yeah.
And so you bring your team home, and but it was the Afghans. They saw you helping their guys out of there. I can't remember how many people you ended up bringing home.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean,
but they end up helping you out.
Yeah. So the Afghans, like I helped carry every one of their bodies out, right? They're guys that they had lost, and I wasn't going to leave until I got everybody out. Like, it wasn't going to be it didn't matter. It wasn't a me and them. It wasn't we were there together, and they were, they're my brothers too. And so, I was fighting to get them out. And, whenever I found my teammates, I told them, I said, cause we were under pretty good machine gun fire. And, I had told Fazell, I said, hey, let them know, like, don't come over here I don't want any more getting hurt. Let me just get them out. I'll carry them out myself. I said, they're my teammates. I'll fucking carry them out by myself. And I told him, don't tell him, don't touch him. And he looked at me, put his hand on my shoulder. And it was the first time that day that I broke down. Like I'll never forget. I picked up Gunny Johnson and threw him over my back, and rigor mortis had already set in, and I don't know. Like I carried out, a couple bodies already, and I never really felt how exhausted I was. And I threw Gunny Johnson over my back, picked him up, and started to carry him out. And I fell flat on my face, and I just like that. I broke down. Like I broke down, and like. I couldn't believe it, and Fazell came over to me and he said, "Hey, check it out. Like you need to wipe those tears up. You don't fucking cry in front of these other guys." Like he said, you need, like, it's not something you do. And he's like, they're going to help you carry them out. And I said, don't tell them not to touch them. And he goes, no, they said that you helped them carry their brothers out, and they're going to help you carry yours out. And they did. They helped me, and we put Gunny Johnson and Doc Layton in the first truck, and then we put Lieutenant Johnson and Kennefic in the second truck. And I ended up jumping in the second truck, which had an Afghan driver, and it had me and Fazell, and then I sat in the back with Kennefic and Johnson and rode back to base.
And this whole time, well, you were shot right in the elbow during all that.
I took a piece of shrapnel in my right elbow. Yeah. And
despite that, I mean, you're still busting your ass off, bringing everybody out of that.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter. I mean, I remember one time in the turret, it sounded like static being over top of my head. Like it was so much fire. I remember it going through my head, like, I'm just waiting for it's just going to be lights out, right? Like I was just waiting, but I always told myself like fuck these guys, right? Like they're going to have to kill me. Like that's the one oath. Like I never thought like after Rodriguez, I shot a guy in the front and Rodriguez ran over a guy. Like they were trying to jump on the truck. And at that point, I was like, man, I'm a dead man. Like I'm dead. Like I'm gonna fucking die. But I didn't even care. You know what I mean? Like it was like, let's get this over with.
And you talk about that in the book, that you and your gun became one. I mean, you were just kind of another piece there to kind of turn it and point in the right direction.
Yeah.
Would you say, and you talk about that, how you just kind of became numb, was that reckless abandonment, or was it just, I'm here to do my job?
No, I mean, I think it's just like a level of commitment, right? I think it's just it's the same as when you get down to a cause, right? Like, after it was like, like you just go into this mode of numbness, of nothing really matters, right? Like everything for me slowed down. Like it got really, really slow, and it was like a calm. Like it was like a calm. You just like, what do you got to worry about, right? Like
acceptance.
Like, it's just like, it's like acceptance.
I know, Gordon, we've talked about that before.
Yeah.
With a couple other guys on the show. Like that's the only way to be effective and to do a lot of that shit, is to be like, well, I'm gonna die here. Like I'm already dead. I'm just buying as much time as I can.
So the days afterwards, I mean, how far into this deployment were you in, and how much time were you supposed to have left with the team?
So we were like, we had a long time to go, like we were only there we got there July, August, September. I mean, you're talking, I've been there for 2.5 months.
And how long did you end up staying there before you ended up coming home?
Did I what?
Before you came home, I know there in the book you kind of talk about your ping pong match against the I can't think of her name now.
Oh yeah, Katie Kopp.
Yes. That post firefight, and then having that game against her. How much time passed, and what was
So I
it?
got sent home Thanksgiving weekend. I ended up actually landing in the United States on December 5th of 2009. So I was in quite a few more gunfights. I mean, I went up and got into a gunfight that I feel was a lot worse than that day, 4 days later. Um, I mean, I was in a lot more, like we were 2 and 3 a day sometimes.
And for you, I mean, what was going through your head at that point? I mean, did it kind of
Um,
or your perception or your demeanor working with everybody?
no, I lost 11 guys that day, to include my Afghans. And I just, I just kind of went into like a mode, right? Like it was autopilot. I went back 2 days later after I lost my team. I mean, I went back that night. I lost my team, put them in the freezers. Um, did the proper respects for them, put the flags over them, tossed them on the birds, and as soon as I did that, I literally walked across base, washed my hands, and went to the chow hall and ate lunch or ate dinner. And well, actually, I didn't eat dinner. I went straight over to the Afghan side of the base, and I made sure that we took care of their guys, and we made sure that I gave them the proper respects, and put all their guys into the freezers, and did all that, the same thing that we do to the Americans. Made sure that they had all the supplies they needed. I helped them a lot with the medical side of it, and then I went and got lunch, and then dinner, and then I got dinner, and then the first thing I did before I did that, I'll take it back. I knew they were going to go River City, so River City is where they shut down the base of communications until they notify their next of kin, and I knew a reporter was with us, and he was writing an article on this. And I knew my dad would see it, and that if he didn't hear from me, he would worry about me. So I ran back to my hooch first before I even did anything else, and I Skyped him. And all I told my dad was, as I said, we had a bad day. All you need to know is I'm okay. And my dad said, well, what about your teammates? And I said, we just had a bad day. And he said, so you're all right? I said, I promise I'm fine. I'm good. Everything's good. I said, Dad, it's all going to be all right. And I said, I'll call you whenever I get another chance, and hung up. And so then I went over and took care of the Afghans. And then I went back. And as soon as I ate, I went back and started getting the trucks ready for the next mission. I went and took, my guys' gear and started cleaning their gear out, trying to spray all the blood out of the trucks. I mean, the trucks, our trucks were covered in fucking blood. It's just like, you couldn't believe the amounts of blood in these trucks. Clean the trucks out, refitted them with ammunition, refitted my med bag, and walked in and went to sleep. Got up next day. They had said that they're going to do a week or 2 week decompression. I couldn't go back to my base because we were decompressing. And I found a way to sneak back up to my base. I got 2 guys to go with me, and one of the Marine colonels let me go, and went back to my base 2 days later. Got in that night, and as soon as we got up the next morning, as soon as it got light, I went through and packed all my teammates' stuff up in our hooch, and put it in the Connex box. And then 2 days later, got in another gunfight, just as fucking big.
How much longer after that were you there? I mean, you get in that next firefight.
About 3 months.
And coming home then after all that, I mean, what was it do to adjust back to civilian life?
Well, so like I was still in the Marine Corps, but I mean they sent me home to home, and it was hard. I mean it was hard. A a lot of struggles.
And you kind of going through, well, quite a bit or all of it in the book, and I don't want to give too much away for people, but there's that. If you don't mind going over that night was it night or early morning? You're sitting in your car.
Yeah. I mean, like I always say, sometimes you find yourself in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes in the middle of nowhere you find yourself.
And it was after that night. I want to go in more detail that you don't want to. That's when you decided to kind of change things around. Aside from that, though, what was the biggest challenge kind of adjusting back to life here in the States?
Man, it was just, I mean, look, I had planned on being a Marine the rest of my life. I mean, I had planned on, like, that was going to be my life. I literally went on this deployment to get enough, to try to get some experience to go to the MARSOC selection assessment. Like, that was my dream, was to go be an operator. My dream was, I loved it. Like, that's what I wanted to do. And I was going to re-enlist. I was going to re-enlist over there. Like, I had all these fucking plans, and just, everything I lived my life for, found what I was good at, found what I loved doing, and it was just fucking taken away in one day, Everything I loved, everything I fucking loved. My closest guys I cared about, the closest people to the face of the planet, all gone. My career, gone. My job, gone. My plans, gone. Like, it's just one day, one moment in time in the middle of fucking nowhere, just everything that you cared about, gone.
And so how did you, everything's gone at that point. I mean, what's the mental process, or how did you then, now you founded and now own the Dash, and you started a podcast owning it. I mean, how do you go from basically nothing? I mean, what's the conversation with us, others, to get to that point?
Man, you got to figure out what, you got to stop being the fucking victim, right? You got to stop coming up with excuses. You got to stop blaming everybody else for your problems. You got to eventually look in the fucking mirror and man the fuck up. You got to, look, everybody's got a story. Everybody's got some events. Everybody's gone through something. Somebody's got it worse. Like, once you stop feeling sorry for yourself, then you can start, coming up with a plan.
And so, Own the Dash, where did you come up with the name for the brand, and what is Own the Dash in your words?
Own the Dash for me is just, it's about living a life worthy of living. I see all these guys who go out and I got PTSD, I can't do shit, I'm an asshole because I lost guys. And it's like, well, that's bullshit, right? Like, you need to be going out and creating a life that's worthy of their sacrifices. So Own the Dash comes from a poem Linda Ellis wrote called The Dash. And, she talks about how one thing that, I know very well is, I know a lot of guys who are now represented by tombstones. And on that tombstone, it's like your last living legacy. And on that tombstone, you've got the date you were born and the date you died. But what really matters is that dash in between. And so you got to own your dash, right? Own your life. Be the best you can fucking be. You can't decide how long your dash is, but you can decide what it looks like. And all that matters is, it doesn't matter how much money you got. It doesn't matter how many likes you get on fucking Instagram. It doesn't matter how many downloads you get, views. It doesn't matter how many people like you. What it matters is how you treat people. And, that's ultimately what it comes down to. And that's where, I think that, once you start realizing that, and once you realize that, you can control how you treat people and you can control your attitude, is when you start changing life and you start changing, the way you look at shit.
And the podcast came after Own the Dash, correct? You started owning it?
Yep.
When did you start that podcast?
I started a couple years ago. I quit because I just I kind of got tired of it. I wasn't into it. Fired it back up. But now I actually changed the name of it. It's Front Towards the Enemy, because I think that's something of how you got to live, right? It's obviously it comes from a claymore, but it's the way you got to live life, front towards the enemy. You got to lean into it, face it, you run from your problems so much. And I think that's ultimately what will get you to a place to where you get to rock bottom, right? Running from your problems, you're going to run into a fucking wall somewhere. And until you lean into it and you start handling it and taking care of it, it's, you're just going to ultimately be surrounded.
I apologize. I'm behind a few episodes. I started at the very beginning when I first heard you talk about it, I believe with Joe. Either way, I started listening to the very first episode. The last one I just listened to was with John from The Chive. So I'm a little behind. But yeah, I just saw you post the other day about Front Towards the Enemy. I assume that was a different show that you're a guest on. Okay, so now I'm
No, that's my new show. I changed it to Front Towards the Enemy. I think it's more of my style, and yeah.
So the book Into the Fire, when did you start to think about that, or did Bing West come to you with the idea?
Bing actually watched me get in a gunfight, right? Like Bing was actually on base one day. He was over there reporting, and we were sitting there talking, and I hear a sniper shot, and I jumped. I mean, I was like, I'm telling you, after I lost my team, I would fire back in a heartbeat. So I got in a gunfight while Bing was there, and then actually as Bing was leaving, I got into a fight with an Army guy at the fuel tanks. Like I would say I had a short fuse, and we stayed in touch. And after I got my medal, we wrote the book together, and all I told him was I want my teammates, to live on forever, even whenever I can't speak their words anymore, their names anymore. Like I want them to live forever, and that's the way we did it with the book.
And as Brian alluded to earlier, you received the Medal of Honor for your actions in Ganjgal. And in the book, you talk about the paperwork fiasco that came before that. So you were in the firefight in 2009. When did you actually end up receiving the medal?
I don't know. Like I think I'm
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you now.
There we go. So there's a little bit of a paperwork fiasco for your award. When did you end up receiving the medal?
About 2 years later. So I received it in September 15th, 2011.
And I've heard you just, you talk about on other podcasts, you think you don't necessarily associate yourself with that. You talk about how it's just in a box somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's not. It's actually like it's in my daughter's diaper bag because I gave it to her. Did you try to use that as a platform to stand on afterwards, with the book or starting your company, or is it just I'm Dakota Meyer? Yeah, I'm Dakota Meyer. I'm a Marine. I'm not a Medal of Honor recipient. I'm a United States Marine that received the Medal of Honor.
And so, of course, if folks want to check out On the Dash, or now I know front
towards the enemy.
Front Towards the Enemy. Jesus.
Yeah.
You can get it, Gordon. I believe in you.
English is hard. We're under quarantine. Where can folks find you online?
Yeah, find me at Dakota Meyers 0317, Instagram, On the Dash, Flipside Canvas, any of that,
And for anyone that has served or that is thinking about serving, or maybe they're just going into the military now, is there any advice that you would offer them?
Just do it. Just send it.
Thanks again for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. And thank you for everyone to tuning into this episode. Stay up to date for future guests and live recordings on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at No Story Left Behind. Don't forget to check out my other show called Rules of the Arena. You can find that on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Vero, and YouTube, and also Twitch, all under Rules of the Arena podcast, available for download and streaming on blindninjastudios.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, and CastBox. If you're a veteran and in a bad spot, please reach out, talk with a battle buddy, a friend, or even family member, or maybe someone you know or are concerned about. Please reach out. You can call 1-800-273-8255 or text 838255 to speak with a caring, qualified VA responder available 24/7. thank you again, everyone, and we will catch you next time.
Okay.
Awesome.